Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, for 2 years, Isabella Hartley lived in the shadow of absence. Her husband, Ethan Blackwiller, charismatic millionaire, adored by the public, had vanished from her life without warning, leaving only silence in his place. Once, he had been her world, the man who swept her off her feet with promises and passion. But time turned those memories into echoes, and Isabella learned to survive without him. Just when she began to believe her heart had found a new path, fate placed Ethan back in her world, bringing with him unanswered questions, buried emotions, and a storm that could change everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, and keep up with our latest stories. For 2 long years, Eleanor Vance lived in the shadow of a marriage that looked perfect on paper but felt empty in her heart. Her husband, Leo Maxwell, one of the city's most powerful millionaires, barely saw her as more than a name beside his on legal documents. She was ignored, overlooked, and treated as if she were invisible. But everything began to shift the day another man truly looked at her, not as the wife of a billionaire, not as an accessory to his status, but as a woman. That one spark lit a fire Leo had never expected. And for the first time in years, he acted. What would you do if the careful life you'd been holding together suddenly cracked open in a single moment? This is Eleanor's story, the story of a woman who finally dared to ask for more than the scraps she'd been given. Eleanor's mornings were always the same, carved into her life like clockwork. At 5:30 a.m., her alarm whispered her awake. She slipped quietly from bed, careful not to wake Leo in the other room. Her clothes were always modest, chosen for comfort, not attention. Downstairs, she'd make her breakfast, eat quickly, and vanish before her husband appeared. Leo Maxwell's schedule was as precise as the ticking of his luxury watch. At exactly 6:15 a.m., he would step into the kitchen in a tailored suit, drink his coffee, and leave for his Empire Maxwell holdings. They would share the space for no more than 15 minutes, never long enough for more than a polite greeting. In 2 years, they'd spoken fewer than 100 words. Their marriage hadn't grown from love. It had been forged out of necessity. When her father's company, Vance & Company, teetered on the edge of ruin, the Maxwells had offered a lifeline, a union between Eleanor and Leo. In exchange, the Vances got the money they needed, and the Maxwells got the perfect, respectable wife for their heir. The arrangement had been neat, clean, and utterly cold. But on a crisp Tuesday morning, something broke the pattern. When Eleanor descended the stairs, expecting the kitchen to be empty, Leo was already there. He was dressed sharply in a charcoal suit, his attention locked on the phone in his hand. The sight of him at this hour, waiting, unsettled her. This had never happened before. Eleanor, her name in his deep voice, startled her, making her grip the counter. Yes. Her reply came out softer than she'd meant, the sound almost fragile in the air. Do you have anything suitable for a corporate event? His eyes never left his tablet. She blinked. I don't understand. It's a simple question, he said, his tone clipped. Do you own a gown appropriate for accompanying the CEO of Maxwell Holdings to a gala dinner? Her heart skipped. In 2 years of marriage, she had never once stood publicly by his side. Why are you asking me this? For the first time in what felt like years, Leo looked up at her. His gaze was sharp, assessing, as though he was truly seeing her. Because you're coming with me tomorrow night. Business Association Gala, 7 p.m. But why? You've never. Because I need to appear as a stable family man, he cut in. His words were cold, transactional. You are my wife, at least on paper. International investors will be there. $1 million contracts. Each syllable landed like a stone in her chest. Eleanor's face flushed, but she forced herself to stand tall. And what if I don't want to go? His eyebrow arched slightly. Clearly, he hadn't expected resistance. That's not an option, it's a task. A task, she repeated, bitterness coating her voice. Like everything else in my life. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe, but it vanished quickly. You need to be presentable, he continued. Eleanor lifted her chin. Presentable? You don't even know who I am, Leo. In all these years, you've never cared to find out. I know enough. Then tell me, she challenged. My favorite food, what I studied, what I do with my time while you ignore me in this house. Leo said nothing. The silence between them was answer enough. That's what I thought, she murmured, a sad smile tugging at her lips. I will go to your event, Mr. Maxwell, but not because it's a task. I'll go because after years of being invisible, I'm curious to see this world you chose instead of me. Without another word, she walked past him, her steps steady and proud. Leo watched her ascend the stairs, something tightening in his chest. For the first time in 2 years, he saw her not as an obligation, but as a woman poised, graceful, carrying a quiet strength he'd never noticed before. Upstairs, Eleanor sat on the edge of her bed, her pulse still racing. Tomorrow night, for the first time since their wedding, she would be Eleanor Maxwell in the public eye, and deep down, she wondered if she was ready for the consequences. The comment, though flattering, seemed to carry an intent she wasn't ready to explore. After all, she hadn't imagined others knowing about her failed marriage. Not everyone gets the opportunity to notice it, she responded, glancing at her wineglass. Meanwhile, miles away, Leo sat in his study at the mansion, his laptop screen blank. He held a glass of whiskey, but wasn't drinking. His mind was elsewhere, on the smile Eleanor gave Robert, on the way she seemed so comfortable with another man. He had never felt jealousy before, and the sensation was like a poison corroding his usual calm. He tried to work Butte spreadsheets made no sense. He picked up his phone and opened an old message from a colleague mentioning the gala dinner. "Your wife stole the show last night," the text read. Leo closed his eyes, trying to banish the image of Eleanor, radiant, talking to other men. Why did it bother him so much? Impulsively, he grabbed his car keys. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, but he couldn't sit still. At their restaurant, dinner was almost over. Robert had called for the check, but before they could rise, he reached across the table, lightly touching Eleanor's fingers. "I hope we can do this again. This was really good. I'm going to put what you taught me here into practice," he said, his tone soft, but laden with something more. She gently withdrew her hand, smiling to soften the gesture. "It was a lovely evening, Robert, but I am a married woman. A marriage that doesn't seem very present," he responded, tilting his head. "You deserve more, Eleanor." Before she could respond, a shadow fell over Bill. Leo stood there, his face a mask of control, but his eyes burning with something wild. "Eleanor," he said, his voice quiet. "It's time to go." Robert rose, surprised, but not intimidated. "Look, what a surprise. I didn't know you'd be joining us." "I didn't join," Leo said, not taking his eyes off Elena. "I'm here for my wife." The air grew thick. Eleanor felt her heart pound, not from fear, but from something she couldn't name. "I know the way home, Leo," she said, keeping her voice steady. "You didn't have to come. Perhaps I wanted to." Heshet back, and there was something in his voice, vulnerability she'd never heard before. Robert stood, adjusting his cuff. "Well, it seems the evening Eleanor, it was a pleasure. Leo, take care of yourself." He left, leaving an awkward silence. The car ride home was silent, but the air was electric. Eleanor stared out the window, trying to process what had just happened. Leo, for his part, gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. "Why did you come to the restaurant?" she asked finally, breaking the silence. He hesitated, something he rarely did. "Because I couldn't stay at home knowing you were with him," she scoffed at him. "You never cared before." "Perhaps I was an idiot before," he said fiercely. "Perhaps I'm starting to see things I didn't see." Eleanor felt her chest tighten. It was the first time Leo had ever admitted something like that, but she didn't know if she could trust it. "You can't just decide you care now, Leo. Not after treating me like a piece of furniture for so long." He pulled the car into the mansion's garage and turned to her. For the first time, his eyes were cold. "I know I failed you," he said. "But yesterday at the event and today, I saw who you are, and I can't stop thinking about it." She opened the car door, but before getting out, she looked at him. "If you want me to believe that, Leo, you're going to have to do more than show up at my dinner party." She walked up the stairs without looking back, but her heart was hammering. Something had changed between them, something dangerous and new. Leo remained in Necker, the echo of her words reverberating in his mind. For the first time, he was not of losing her to another man, but of never having the opportunity to truly ignore her. That night, as Eleanor lay in bed, a certainty washed over her. The tables had turned, and she was no longer the invisible woman who accepted crumbs. But was what Leo felt love, jealousy, or just the fear of losing something never valued? Eleanor woke to the soft sound of birds outside, but the morning's tranquility didn't match the storm in her chest. The previous night still resonated in her mind. Leo showing up at the restaurant, the hesitant confession, the look in his eyes that seemed to carry something beyond jealousy. She didn't know what to feel: anger for years of indifference, curiosity about this new Leo who seemed to be emerging, or worse, hope that something might truly change. She walked downstairs cautiously, expecting to find the kitchen empty as usual. But there he was, Leo, again, sitting at the island, stirring something in a saucepan. The smell of eggs and toast filtered through the air. He wore a light blue t-shirt and jeans, a casual look that Eleanor almost didn't recognize. "Good morning," he said, turning with a shy smile. "I made breakfast." She stopped in the doorway, arms crossed. "You never make breakfast." "Perhaps. I'm trying something new," he responded, placing a plate of scrambled eggs and toast on the table. "Please sit." Eleanor hesitated, but curiosity won. She sat, maintaining her rigid posture. "What's going on, Leo?" "First the event, then the dinner, now this. What do you want?" He sat across from her, his intense eyes fixed on hers. "I want Totic." "Really talk?" "Talk." She laughed in disbelief. "I know, maybe I'm finalising you," he said in a low voice. "I was an idiot." The words caught her off guard. There was sincerity in them. But Eleanor didn't want to be swayed. "Apologies aren't enough," she said clearly. "You can't undo time with scrambled eggs." Leo winced as if accepting the blow. "I'm not trying to undo it. I'm trying to start it." Let me." She looked at the untouched plate in front of her. "Why now?" "Because of Robert." He didn't deny it quickly, or maybe a little bit. "He made me see how blind I was. But it's not just jealousy, Eleanor. It's you. The way you carry yourself. The way you speak. The way you handle things. We never saw it before, and now I can't stop thinking about it." Her heart quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. "I want you to come work with me at Maxwell Holdings," he said. "You have an MBA, a PhD, economics. You're brilliant. You always were. I want you at the company, not as my wife, but as Sumione who can make a difference." Elana looked up in surprise. "Are you serious?" "Come on," he said. "Start on the strategic planning team. Show them what you can do, and maybe we can learn to get to know each other better." She felt a warm rush in her chest, a mixture of pride and doubt. It was everything she had ever desired. To be seen, to be valued, to have an opportunity to show her potential. But distrust still held her. "And what if I say no?" Leo offered a sad smile. "Then I'll keep trying, but I hope you say yes." She looked at now cooling eggs and made a decision. "I'll think about it," she said, rising. The next few days were a careful dance. Leo seemed determined to prove his words weren't empty. He'd come home early, ask about her day, try to initiate conversation about books or films. Eleanor responded cautiously, maintaining her guard, but she couldn't deny that something was shifting. The house, which had once been a mausoleum of silence, was beginning to hum on Friday. She accepted the offer to work at Maxwell Holdings. She arrived at the office dressed in a sharp white suit, her hair tied back in an elegant ponytail. Leo introduced her to the team as Elena Vance, our new head of strategic planning, without mentioning Ish was his wife. She liked that. For the first time, she felt valued, for Hush was not the last name she carried. The work was challenging, exhilarating. Eleanor immersed herself in market analysis, client meetings, and expansionary proposals. The team respected her, and her insights began to draw the attention of the directors. Leo watched her from afar with a pride he didn't fully comprehend himself. One evening, after a long meeting, he invited her for coffee in the building's rooftop terrace. The sky was clear, and the city glittered. "Bello, you're impressing everyone," he said, handing her a warm mug, "including me." Leo set his mug on the wall and reached for her hand, a gesture so unexpected that she didn't pull away. "Because I feel something I've never felt before," he said, his voice raw. "I can't explain it, Eleanor, but when I see you, when I hear you, it's like I've woken up from a dream. I want to be the man you deserve, if you'll let me try." The words washed over her like a wave. She wanted to doubt him, wanted to protect herself, but something in his eyes, a mixture of fear and hope, made her hesitate. "You'll have a lot to prove," she said softly. "I know," he responded, and for the first time their fingers intertwined. The following weeks were a revelation. Leo continued to surprise her with small gestures. A flower left on her desk, a text asking if she needed anything, an invitation to have lunch together. Elena began to let her guard down, allowing herself to laugh at his jokes, share stories from her childhood, feel comfort of his presence. One Saturday evening, he invited her for dinner at home, something they had never done before. The dining room was lit with candles, and Leo had prepared a lemon risotto, imperfect, but made with care. "I'm no chef," he said with a laugh, "but I hope it's edible." She giggled, and the sound filled his heart. During dinner they talked about everything: dreams, fears, memories. Elena told him about her passion for painting. something she'd abandoned after her marriage. Leo promised to buy her canvases and paints. After dinner they sat on the sofa, a glass of wine between them. The conversation faded, but the silence was comfortable. Leo looked at her for a sec, his eyes shining in the soft lamplight. He said in a deep voice, "I love you." She stiffened, her wine glass halfway to her mouth. Leo leaned in and kissed her. A shy kiss, tentative but full of promise. And for the first time, they truly gave themselves to each other. The night was intense, marked by careful touches and raw emotions. When Leo discovered she was still a virgin, he paused, his eyes wide. "You'll never," she shook her head but held his gaze. "Never Enyan Leo, now it's you." He pulled her closer, kissing her with new compassion. That night, Eleanor fell asleep in his arms, feeling for the first time as if she belonged. Leo woke up looking at her, his heart full of certainty. He would do anything to keep her by his side. But in the back of his mind, a shadow remained, a secret he hadn't yet revealed. A contract that would change everything if she knew. The morning light filtered through the heavy drapes of Eleanor's room, but she didn't get up right away. She lay there, eyes open, trying to process her emotions. I thought overwhelmed her since last night. The surrender to Leo, the shared vulnerability, the warmth of his arms, it all felt like a dream, but also like a bond. She wanted to believe in the new Leo, in the man who promised to love her, but a voice in her head cautioned in the kitchen. The silence was broken only by the sound of the coffee maker. Leo had already left for work, leaving a note on the counter. "Early meeting. Loved our night. See you at the office, you're amazing on the team." Alalana smiled as she read it. She decided to head to the office early. She wanted to immerse herself in work, organize her thoughts, and perhaps catch Leo before he started his day. She put on a stylish gray blouse, tied her hair into a low ponytail, and walked to the Maxwell Holdings headquarters. She didn't find Leo right away. She started on her work, and during a break, while having coffee in the break room, she noticed that Leo hadn't appeared all day. He had mentioned a meeting, but something felt out of the ordinary. Curious, she decided to go to his office on the executive floor. His secretary, Clara, was on the phone, and Eleanor took the opportunity to walk in unannounced. Leo's office was impeccable with dark wood shelving and a panoramic view of the city. Papers were scattered across his desk, something unusual for the methodical man she knew. She sat in his chair almost on impulse and began to read the documents. They were financial reports, partnership agreements, nothing out of the ordinary until a blue file tucked beneath a stack of papers caught her eye. The title on the paper was Simple Business Merger Agreement, Maxwell Holdings, and Vance and Eleanor gasped. She opened the file with trembling hands, and every word she read felt like an explosion. The document dated years ago detailed the merger of their family companies, but one clause highlighted in yellow made her throat size. As part of the agreement, Eleanor Vance shall enter into marriage with Leo Maxwell, ensuring the consolidation of assets and financial stability for both. She felt the air leave her lungs. The marriage she had always known was arranged wasn't just a convenience, it was a transaction. A cold business document signed by her father and Leo's father, a handwritten note in red ink in the margin read, "Ensure discretion off marriage clause." To avoid resistance from the bride, the handwriting was her father's. Eleanor Vance stared at the file, her hands shaking so much she could barely hold it. She felt betrayed, sold, reduced to a line in a contract. Everything Leo had said in the past few days, the love, the promises, the gestures of affection, now felt like a cruel deception. Had he manipulated her to keep her bound by the agreement? Had the jealousy, the arrogance, all been part of a plan to protect the company's interests? She quickly closed the file and placed it back where she had found it. When Leo walked in, wearing a smile that quickly faded when he saw her expression, Alalana already had her hands clasped in front of her. "Eleanor, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping closer to kiss her. "I know everything," she said, her voice cold, but laced with pain. "The contract, the merger, how did you—" "It doesn't matter how," she interrupted. "What matters is that you knew. You knew I was just a pawn in a business game, and yet you let me live those years as a ghost in that house while you reaped the profits of my humiliation." "It's not like that," he said, stepping closer. "In the beginning, yes, it was an agreement, but now what?" She laughed, a sad, desolate sound that echoed in his heart. "How can I believe you, Leo, when everything started with a lie?" "Because True," he raised his voice, but there was no anger, only desperation. "I didn't see you before, Eleanor. I was blind, caught in my world, in business, in expectations. But when I saw you at that event, When I realized who you truly are, everything changed. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You expect me to believe that after finding out I was sold by my own parents, that you accepted this deal without ever asking me what I wanted? You were afraid I'd fall in love with Robert and want to leave you and end this sham, weren't you? Leo ran a hand through his hair in anguish. No, not that. I know I was wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning, but please listen to me. I didn't mean to hurt you. In the beginning it was just business, but now you're everything to me, everything to you. She took a step back, his words hollow. You don't know what I felt when I read that contract. How I felt used, betrayed. My parents sold me, Leo, and you were an accomplice to it. I didn't want this, he said, his voice breaking. I accepted it because it's what my family expected. But as we're Eleanor, what I feel now is real. I love you. Love doesn't start with Lee's, she retorted. She grabbed her bag and the blue file, holding it up as evidence. I need space. Don't follow me. She left the office, ignoring his desperate call. Outside, the cold morning wind hit her like a slap, but it didn't dull the pain in her chest. She walked aimlessly, the file in the passenger seat like a dead weight. Eventually, she stopped at a park by Thuriver where she sat on a bench, her face buried in her hands. Memories of the past few weeks rushed back in waves. The dinner, the work at the company, the night they had given themselves to each other. It all felt so real, but now she wondered if Leo had planned every step to keep her under his control. The betrayal from her parents was an even deeper blow. How could they do this to her? Sell their own daughter for a merger? Hours later, as the sun began toasted, Eleanor made a decision. She couldn't go home, not yet. She called a hotel in the city center and booked a room. She needed time to think, to sort out her feelings, to decide what she would do. In the hotel room, she tossed with file onto the table and sat, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her phone vibrated with messages from Leo. Please call me. I love you. We can talk. I don't want to lose you. She deleted them all without reading the rest. The pain was suffocating, but a small part of her still heard Leo's voice, the sincerity in his eyes. What if he was telling the truth? What if his love was real? Desperate everything, but how could she trust again after such a massive betrayal? That night, Eleanor cried herself to sleep, the blue file beside her. After a long time, she knew the answer wouldn't come anytime soon, but she also knew she was no longer the invisible woman she had been 2 years ago. Whatever the future held, she would face it with the strength she had discovered within herself. The morning light filtered into Eleanor's hotel room through the window. She decided to take a hot bath, hoping water would wash away some of the confusion. As the steam fogged the mirror, she thought of Leo, his image in the office. His distraught face and his broken voice refused to leave her mind. He seemed devastated, but was it genuine, or was it just the fear of losing control of the agreement that was driving him? And her parents, how could she face them knowing they had sold her in a merger? She dressed in a loose blouse and jeans, something simple that made her feel like herself again, not the CEO's wife or a pawn in a contract. She went down to the hotel restaurant for coffee, but the food seemed unappetizing. As she stirred her cappuccino, a sudden wave of nausea made her put the spoon down. Strange, she thought. Maybe it was stress. She ignored the discomfort and picked up her phone, which showed several missed calls from Leo and a message from her mother. Daughter, we need to talk. Call me. Eleanor deleted the message without replying. She decided to walk around the city. To clear her head, the downtown area was bustling with people rushing by and street vendors hawking their wares. She passed a bookstore and walked in, drawn by the smell of paper. She browsed aimlessly, but the words seemed distant. She sat on a bench in the back of the store trying to organize her thoughts. She wanted space, but also answers. She wanted to forgive, but her pride held strong. And most of all, she wanted to understand what was truly happening. When she returned to her room, she found an envelope slipped under the door. The paper was elegant with the Maxwell Holdings logo. She opened it idly and found a handwritten letter in Leo's script. Eleanor, I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try. There are no words that can undo what I did or didn't do over the years. I accepted the contract because I was chasing something, to be more than just a CEO, more than a name on a ledger. But I was wrong, terribly wrong, and I hurt you. But please believe me when I say that, past few weeks, the past few nights, they've been the most real of my life. I love you, Eleanor, and it's not out of guilt or fear. It's because you are the most incredible woman I have ever met. If you want space, I respect that, but please know that I am fighting for you. Don't give up on us, Leo. The letter trembled in her hands. Eleanor felt the tears return. But this time, they were different. Not just from pain, but from an emotion she didn't want to name. She placed the letter in her bag and decided she needed more time. She called the hotel and extended her reservation to more days. Meanwhile, at the Maxwell Holdings headquarters, Leo was in reconnaissance. He canceled meetings, left emails unanswered, and spent hours staring out this office window. Clara, his secretary, came in with a stack of documents. Booth hesitated when she saw him. "Mr. Maxwell, are you all right?" she asked cautiously. "No," he replied gruffly, "but I will be." Clara shrugged, but didn't press. When she left, Leo picked up the phone and called the company's legal counsel. "Michael, I want an emergency board meeting," he said, "today at 6 p.m., and call the representatives from Vance and Comium. The merger is stabilized. The numbers, it's not about numbers," Leo cut them off. "It's about something bigger." That evening, the Maxwell Holdings conference room was packed. The directors exchanged curious glances while the representatives from Vance and Company, including Eleanor's father, Richard Vance, waited impatiently. "An emergency meeting. We called this meeting to discuss the merger between our companies, or more precisely, to dissolve it." A murmur ran through the room. Richard Vance stood up, his face red. "What are you saying, Leo? This agreement is the basis of our recovery." "I know," Leo said, calm but firm. "But I also know this agreement came at a cost that is priceless." Eleanor. Richard hesitated but pressed on. "This is absurd. The marriage was consensual." "It was not consensual," Leo interrupted, his voice strong. "She was manipulated by you, by my father, and I accepted it. But now I will no longer be part of it." He opened a folder and pulled a document across the table. "This is the dissolution plan. Maxwell Holdings will return any financial effective today. Our companies are separate." The silence was deafening. Onoff, the directors, a man named Thomas, spoke in disbelief. "Leo, this will cost billions. The board won't approve." "Too bad, I already have," Leo said, looking each of them. "In the eye as the largest shareholder, my decision is final. And to ensure there's no doubt, I am resigning from my position as CEO, effective immediately." Richard Vance slammed his fist on the table. "You've gone mad because of one woman. Not because of one woman," Leo retorted, "but because of your daughter. The woman who is worth more than any fortune, any company, any contract. Eleanor is not a pawn in a game. She is my wife, and I will prove it to her with more than just words." He walked out of the room, leaving the board in silence in the hallway. He ignored the bewildered stares of the employees and walked out to the hotel where Eleanor was staying. But when he arrived, he hesitated. He didn't want to force her into anything. Instead, he left another envelope at the front desk with a single note. "I did what I should have done years ago. You are free, but if you won't, I'll be waiting." At the hotel, Eleanor received the envelope and opened, her heart racing. But the note was too brief to explain everything. Shetland on the television, and the news was on every business channel. "Leo Maxwell resigns as head of Maxwell Holdings. Dissolves billionaire merger with Vance incumbently." Interviews with analysts speculated about the reasons, but no one mentioned her name. She felt the ground disappear beneath her. Lai had given up everything, the company, the power, the fortune that defined him. For her, on Wednesday, another shock hit her harder. She decided to go to a nearby pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test almost on impulse. In the hotel bathroom, she looked at the two lines on the screen with a mixture of shock and disbelief. She was pregnant. Leo's child, conceived that night of mutual surprise. The news changed everything. Eleanor held the test, tears streaming freely. That it wasn't just about her now. It was about the life she carried, about the future she needed to build. She decided to confront her parents before making any decisions. She walked to their house, the blue file in her bag. When her mother opened the door, Eleanor wasted no time. "Why did you do this to me?" she asked, holding up the document. Her mother, Helen, turned pale. "Daughter, it was for our own good." "Our own good?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "You sold me like I was a commodity." Richard appeared in the living room, his face tense. "You don't understand, Eleanor. The company was failing. It was the only way out, and I was the price," she said, her voice shaking. "You never asked me what I wanted. And now Leo has thrown everything away, thrown away billions. And you still think you were right." Helen began to cry, but Eleanor didn't relent. "I needed to hear this from you," she said, "but I won't carry the weight of your choices, not anymore." She left the house without looking back, feeling lighter but still lost. The baby changed everything, but her pride still kept her from seeking out Leo. She needed time to decide if the love Hesed he felt was greater than the pain he had caused that night back at the Eleanor slept with her hand on her belly, dreaming of a future she couldn't yet see. But for the first time, she felt she had the power to choose. In the morning, sitting on the side of the bed, she picked up the pregnancy test. The Twolens still staring back at her like a living secret, and decided she needed to face Leo, not as a wife of an agreement, but as the woman who now carried his child. She put on a crisp white dress that seemed to reflect the need for a new beginning and walked to the mansion. The familiar drive felt new, as if every turn in the road held a promise. She pulled into the driveway, took a deep breath, and walked inside, her heart pounding. The house was silent, save for the sound of something being stirred in the kitchen. She found Leo there, his back to her, arranging breakfast with fruit and croissants, who were a blue t-shirt and jeans, a simplicity that still surprised her when he saw her. He froze, his eyes wide with surprise and relief. Eleanor Hesed in a soft, almost scared voice. "You came. We need to talk," she responded, holding her posture firm, but her voice trembled slightly. Leo put down the plate of food and walked closer, but kept his distance as if afraid to startle her. "I know I don't deserve you being here," he began. "Beauty, I'm so glad you came," he interrupted, holding up his hand. "I saw the news, Leo, you dissolved the merger, resigned from the company." He looked into her eyes without looking away. "You're worth more. I don't want to live in a world where you think you're just a pawn in a contract. I love you, Eleanor, and if that means giving up everything, I'll do it without a second thought." Leo took a step forward, his eyes burning with an intensity that made her hesitate. "You are a brilliant, strong woman who made me want to be better. I want to ask for a favor. I want to ask for an opportunity to build something real together." She felt tears threaten, but she held them back. "I found out something, Leo," she said, just above a whisper. "Something that changes everything." He winced concerned. "What?" Eleanor took a deep breath, her hands instinctively touching her belly. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was profound, as if the world had stopped. Leo stared, his face transformed by a wave of emotions: shock, joy, and fear. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands trembling as he held hers. Tears streamed down his face, something Eleanor had never imagined seeing. "A child?" he asked, his voice broken. "Our child?" She felt the tears now escaping freely. "Yes." Owersler pulled her into a careful hug, as if he was afraid to break her. "I swear, Eleanor," he murmured against her hair, "I'm going to be the man you and our child deserve. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." She finally allowed herself to lean into his embrace. The next few days were spent rebuilding. Eleanor moved back into the mansion, but insisted on keeping her own room for now. She wanted space to process everything, but she couldn't help but trust him little by little. Leo respected that, but hadn't pulled back. He made her coffee every morning, asked about her prenatal appointments, and went to every single one. He even started reading books about fatherhood, which made her laugh. One afternoon, he surprised her with a proposal. "I want to start something." "Oh, for own," he said as they walked through the mansion's garden. "A company of ours, not Maxwell Holdings, not Vance Company. Something that is purely ours." Eleanor raised an eyebrow in intrigue. "A company," as he said eagerly. "Maxwell Advanced Consulting. I have the mind for strategy. I have the experience. We can help small business escrow do something that has purpose." She smiled, the idea igniting something within her. "I like that," she admitted. "But it has to be equal. Partners, not boss and subordinate." "Partners," he agreed, extending his hand. She shook it, feeling a warmth that came from the touch. Weeks later, Eleanor decided it was time for something bigger. She sat down with Leo one quiet evening and said, "I want to marry you again, but this time, by choice. A real marriage." Leo was speechless, his eyes bright. "Are you sure?" "I am," she replied. "I want our child to be born knowing their parents chose each other, not that they were forced." They planned a small but meaningful ceremony in a seaside garden. Eleanor wore a flowing white dress with flowers in her hair, and Leo wore Eleanor's suit. There were no investors, no contracts, no business interests, just close friends, the Seb breeze, and a love that against all odds had bloomed on during the vows. Leo held her hands and said, "I promise to be the man you deserve, and I will fulfill that every single day. You taught me what love truly is, Eleanor, and now, with our child on the way, I promise to cherish you and protect our family with everything I am." She smiled, tears falling. "You saw me when I was invisible, Leo, and now I choose you. Not because of work, but because I love you. And so what began as a cold contract became a true love story. Not perfect, but chosen, hard won, and most of all, surprising.